founder of PAGS. PAGS stands for Profile Assessment and Goal Setting, is a platform designed for educators to help students with special educational needs, and basically for any child that falls behind and needs support to achieve their expected level. As part of our broad reach, we lead an Erasmus Plus project that is looking at autism spectrum pathways, and we have a consortium formed for 4 other countries. We are really excited to launch this YouTube video series that actually is aiming to explore and to share experiences and perspective of employers, vocational educational schools trainers, and autistic people in the relation to the training and employment opportunities. So we try to, in this project, we have started with a state-of-the-art research which compiles the data from all 4 countries, Belgium, Spain, Poland, and Romania. And this state-of-the-art research report is now available on our website, which is autism-spectrum-pathways.eu. We recently just launched employment guide, which in my opinion should be in every single company, because it's helping the employers and the HR to make this accommodation and to be aware of what needs to be done for that person to function and within the work environment, and equally for the ones that are attending the work, what they need to do. And then very soon to be released would be the digital training programs that were divided in 3. So for the employers, the training themselves, what they need to do to accommodate those, to identify and accommodate those needs. For the employers themselves, when they search for a job and have to prepare for that. And also for the vocational schools, what kind of skills we need to grow in the newer generation that will be looking for work. I think this will be really interesting to have a follow-up and to see the outcomes in the future, like people getting more jobs, having a job and staying in the job as well is important. So many thanks again. And I just wrap it up into a long explanation. But now I'm passing the microphone to you. If you want to introduce yourself, this is going to be, it is recorded. It will be broadcasted internationally. So please do, Baptiste.
Right. So I am Baptiste. I am 34 years old. I am French originally, but I've been imported to Sweden by my Swedish wife. I now have a 1-year-old daughter as well, who's taking a lot of my time, and we're thinking a lot about neurodiversity in general. My wife has ADD with a bit of hyperactivity as well. So we're both neurodivergent. I'm autistic myself. It's a pretty, I think, mild or maybe high functioning is what you'd call. I got the diagnosis very late. I only had it about 1.5 years ago, officially, even though we've been suspecting it for a little bit longer. And yeah, like my main motivations right now are trying to kind of get a manual on how I function, how I don't function, how I can function better, and if that can help other people that are autistic as well, then that's an added benefit, an added bonus.
Oh, thank you so much, Baptiste. And everybody has a story, and of course, you've got your latest diagnosis. Did that make a change when you got the diagnosis, or what? How did you feel?
The diagnosis itself, not really, because it wasn't a surprise by that point anymore. But the 18 months or so leading up to it, yes. When it started, my wife was looking into that because she's an HR manager basically for her company. She's got a lot of engineers in her company, and I think there's probably the incidence of autistic people in the population of engineers a bit higher than in the general population. So she was trying to optimize their workplace so that they would function and perform better. And that's when she, looking more and more into neurodiversity and autistic and autism in particular, she started telling me, "You're ticking a lot of boxes. You might want to look into this." So yeah, we started looking into that, and yeah, effectively, it was, and that made a change because that allowed me to understand, oh, this is why I react to certain things that way. This is why, for example, my when you talked about communication, I have very good verbal skills. Like I usually choose my words carefully. I understand words pretty well when I test it. My non-verbal skills are horrible. So anything that's between the lines, any subtle things, they just go straight through me. I just don't pick them up. So it's little things like that, and you kind of need that in in your everyday life, in your dating life. Now with that hindsight, I go back, think back of it, my teenage years, and when you're learning how to date and things like that, and I'm just, wow. So that's what that meant at that point. That's what this girl meant. Okay, took me only 15 years to figure out. So it's that's where it made a difference primarily. And now I'm also thinking about my career going forwards and what I need to change. And yeah, it is informing what types of role I should pursue, how I should think about my skill set and my gaps, basically. So yeah, it made a big difference.
Right, thank you for sharing your personal experience. You just mentioned that your lovely wife is in the HR department, so certainly she will be interested in the employment guide. So far we had, I will send all the links, respective links to you. So far we have more than 1,000 downloads. So please do spread the word. It's an open source, and then we are really, everybody who contributed to this employment guide is really proud of their work and contains super, super good information. So now, Baptiste, because you've done, I will take you through the stages. Like there are a couple of questions about like your experience of like finding a job, because this is what we try to pinpoint. What will be the obstacles? Now, how did, in your opinion, can you share your experience of finding a job? Is that difficult? Is that sorry, I don't want to put any words in your mouth.
It is difficult. I mean, I'm making things a little bit more difficult for myself, having expatriated effectively. I mean, I do speak English. I can do. There's a lot of English speaking jobs in Stockholm, where I live, but I mean, I can speak Swedish, but not well enough to take a job in Swedish. So that kind of narrows down already the pool of available jobs. But yeah, it is. I do find it a bit difficult. I don't know that it is specific to me being autistic. I think it's just the way a lot of applicant tracking systems are working or not working that make it really tedious, very repetitive, where you have to, you send a CV, but then you also have to manually upload all your experiences and things like that. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and also prevents you from putting out the numbers that you need. Like I've had a few job searches over the years where there's one, particularly in 2016, I kept a spreadsheet that had north of 700 applications. And the hit rate was under 2%. So, I mean, it was still, a dozen interviews or so, but it wasn't, I mean, it was a lot of work for very, very little output. And that I think is what is making it very difficult. And it hasn't, I don't feel it's gotten better since that experience in 2016.
2016, so we talk about a couple of years ago, more than
Yeah.
more than 8, I would say.
Yeah.
So in your experience, did you get the interview phase? Have you been in the interview phase? You've been, no?
Yeah. I have. I feel like I usually do relatively well in in interviews. I went through a specific, in France, a specific type of schools that we call prépa, so preparatory schools for like big business schools and big engineering schools. And part of that preparation training is interview training specifically. So that was very helpful, and you know, some things that you pick up at 16 and 17, they do tend to stick with you, and you take them in a lot easier than you do at 34. So that's still with me, that's still helping. So yeah.
Okay, so because that part, like applying for a job, you just mentioned it is could be quite tedious, could be quite difficult. The language, narrows down the jobs. The fact that you have some previous experience, which you're in 16 in like secondary school, looks like it's super important. So building up these skills for the interview. So thank you for mentioning that. When you apply on this process, did you inform the organization that you had or you didn't have diagnosis at that time because you had it 1 year ago? Yeah. So
no, it hasn't. It's never. No, I never disclosed it. And no, it's never come up.
And do you think that what would be in your opinion, now that you have a diagnosis, would you feel comfortable to say to the employer that you are on autistic spectrum, or you'll say?
I'm back and forth on it. I haven't had for now, it's just a theoretical exercise. Part of me wants to, because I don't have a lot of patience for mind games and playing hard to get and things like that. So that kind of the seduction aspect of the interview, I just that does nothing for me. So the less I have to do with that, the better. So the more transparent and candid I can be, in my eyes, is better. I do worry that an employer might not react well to it, might think that it will cause an undue burden, or that, you know, they might not understand what it means in actuality. I mean, yes, I'm autistic, but I can still speak to people. I'm not isolated. I'm not, because I think a lot of people, like the experience when I told my current employer that I was autistic, they were surprised because in their mind they had seen the movie Rain Man, and that was kind of their only experience of autistic people, and I'm not there. I'm not even close to being there. So that's why at the interview, like once you're employed, it's different. You have a relationship with your employer. That's a lot more solid than those 15, 30 or 60 minutes that you get into an interview. So then, yeah, it's very, I find it very difficult to decide whether I would or not disclose it. I think I want to, but I'd be a bit afraid.
What would be your advice for other people like yourself? Is just the personal judgment? What would be your advice?
I think the catch-22 that we'd be into is, yeah, trust your judgment, but that means that means kind of judging the people you're speaking to, and with a very limited data set, because you're going to be speaking to them in, an interview is, 15, 30, 60 minutes. I don't trust my judgment, my personality judgment. I don't trust it on that small amount of time. I don't think I would get it right. I would need a lot more time with people to really understand how open they are to things like that. So yes, maybe the easy answer would be to say, yeah, trust your judgment, but I don't think our arsenal that's where it has a gap. So it's it would be difficult to rely on that, I think.
Okay, so from this recruitment process, what aspect do you find it most challenging? The most challenging?
For me, it's getting interviews. it's getting to the interview part, or not even just the interview. Getting to speak to a human is the really difficult. Whether it's an external or internal recruiter with a screening call, once that has happened, it becomes. I think I haven't run the numbers, but I think the hit rate gets a lot better. It's really the bottleneck really is from sending out the application to actually getting a call.
So it's like a triage part, is it?
Yes, yeah, and I think it has to do with the way the those systems are made, where it's all about keywords, and yeah, maybe then that means I don't write my CV in the most algorithmically efficient way, or tailor it well enough. But I think that's the bottleneck.
And what
And
accommodation? Sorry,
I don't think that's an autistic issue, by the way. I think that's just the way
that's in
they've built
general.
these things. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I think I would have the same struggle if I wasn't.
Mm. And what accommodation do you think that and support would be necessary? So if we do, you, in your opinion, and thank you so much for sharing that, it's similar to somebody else I interviewed here last week, was saying that so many pompous words used, like, buzzwords used in the advert in the job, that will be, what accommodation and support do you think would help in this recruitment process? Because there is so much talent in there that we can hire, no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to call it a superpower, because it also has some weights and some problems, but it does some of the qualities that I think I would bring to any job come from my autism. Like I have a really good attention to detail on, and I'm also like quite rigorous, and I don't mind things that are not very but relatively repetitive, which is something that I know I tolerate a lot better because I am autistic. Whereas someone that would have ADD would be just completely, that would be kryptonite for them. So it would be good if employers could recognize, oh, that person is autistic, therefore that those aspects of the job, naturally they would have kind of a natural inclination towards them, and kind of almost a competitive advantage on them. Whereas for me, yeah, like I said, I think I have very bad nonverbal skills, or understanding nonverbal cues. That would be also a good thing for an employer to know that, okay, well, if it's a job where 100% of the time you have to speak to clients and kind of understand buying signals and things like that, well, then maybe that's something that I wouldn't be suited with, and that I think would save them some time.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think talking about this, you are in employment now, no?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is your career goal here, that you are in there, and then what more would you what do you envisage for you? I had my executive head. She had a very good question for me when I had my my talks with her, and she was saying, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?"
I've had a bit of a reverse careerism revelation since I became a dad. I took a lot
Oh,
of
okay.
I took a lot of parental leave,
Mm.
and I've cared less and less about career. I have, probably like a lot of autistic people, very strong hobbies, like special interests. Like for me, it's racing, and so like motor racing and cycling as well, quite a bit. And if those hobbies, if I can do those hobbies, raise my daughter and be a good husband, I've actually realized that sounds like a pretty good life, actually. And whether it feels like if I've realized that, yeah, if I wanted to be, some very, very high level jobs that are very important, like, for me, it would be like running a Formula One team, for example, or I also like geopolitics a lot. So if running a country, then I would be willing to make sacrifices and spend a lot of time and make a lot of effort into those roles. But that's not the path I've taken for various reasons. So I'm kind of thinking, well, does it matter really? Does it really matter if I make it to a middle management role, or if I eventually get to a specific post in a company that makes something that's not necessarily useless, but isn't something that changes the world? I've basically become very relaxed about it all. So yeah, the 5-year question becomes not irrelevant, but almost like doesn't matter so much. It
It's
more
nice to
matters
have
to
this
me.
relaxed approach.
Yeah, which was definitely not expected. I did not expect that a year and a half ago, before my daughter was born, before I took the leave. But yeah, now it's more, yeah, in 5 or 10 years, what matters most is, yeah, what kind of dad I'll be. I'll be then. Will I'll still have that fire for those hobbies that I have? Am I still able to pursue them and be good at them? More than, am I gonna get, yeah, or a job that's, in the grand scheme of things, pretty, like, I don't have a vocation, basically. Like my mother's a nurse, so and she has a vocation, right? She has been put on this earth to heal people. You're an educator, so I suspect that that's your vocation for you as well. That's like a calling. I I don't really have that. So and since I've realized that I don't have that, and it's actually not that bad a thing, then it doesn't matter so much.
Well, of course, we all learn and we continue to learn. Like myself, transition from being an educator to an entrepreneur and running a company. So you always learn. Huh? So it's
Right.
everything is our brain is continuously forming new neural pathways, and neuroscience says that we still can learn regardless. If there's a passion, it's a motivation, the brain absorbs, and this is basically is important to us moving forward. Now that you are in your workplace, have been any accommodations and resources that's been made available to you to make your workplace more inclusive?
No, that's actually a bit of a not a conflict, but a bit of a, yeah, source of a friction, and also part of why I'm rethinking a few things, but not with any existential dread about it. I would want, like, I would want a quieter, less interrupted workspace. I really struggle. Like, I was one of the psychologist that diagnosed me explained to me that my mind is more like a train, more than, like, some people have a mind that works like a fly or a bee, where it just changes direction, no problem. It stops on a dime, no problem. I work like a train. It's very difficult to get it rolling. Once it's rolling, it's very difficult to stop it. So interruptions are really, really tough for me. Whereas once I'm in the zone and getting going, then I have a lot of momentum and I can be quite fast and quite effective. And I've been trying to make that case. I've been also trying to make the case that commuting doesn't help me. I am more sensitive to light, to being touched, to sounds. So a metro ride, as much as my commute is not particularly difficult by all accounts, it's about half an hour door to door. The metro in Stockholm is quite good compared to what I used to have in London. That was absolutely horrendous, with the Jubilee line being completely full every day, and you're stuck amongst people. It still takes a toll on me. It takes energy out of me. It takes a lot of patience out of me that I could be using in my role, and I've been trying to make that case, but it hasn't really been heard.
So what do you think that, how can we make, okay, so this accommodation, like listening to what this is the things that we can do to improve us as an employer, to make the workplace more inclusive and supportive. Do you think that this stems from the fact that the employers they understand autism less or more, or
Yeah,
do you think that
I think so.
what do you think is where is the
Yeah,
problem?
I think the way they reacted when I first told them, I think highlights that it's just something that they know very little about. And I actually don't blame them for that. I mean, myself, 3-4 years ago, before it's kind of became on my radar, I didn't think it was as well something that could really be worked on like that. So yeah, I don't blame them, but the fact that they clearly knew so little, that they think that being autistic meant being able to count cards at a casino, and while being completely incapable of communicating with others and not able to function around other people, which is not quite the case for me, then yeah, they don't really understand it's a question of degrees, right? I can work in an environment that's bright and loud, but it's harder for me than for other people. So yeah, I can do 1 day, I can do 2 days, but after 6 months, it's gonna start burning me out, and that's the part that I don't think they understand.
Mm.
So yeah, it probably would be good for them to be able to get trained on that, but it's also something that kind of has to come from the top. My my wife has, like, I see it in my company where there's no drive to try to understand that, even though I suspect there's a few ADHD profiles in my company that I think would benefit from their own adjustments. And I've seen this as well with my wife on the other side, where she's driving that, and trying to make adjustments, and the culture is very different there. And I do think that then it would probably be easier to have that conversation.
Oh, fantastic. So, I mean, this is what one of the outcomes from this project is increasing awareness and also being able to educate the employers in terms of understanding neurodiversity. And in this case, more and more people being neurodivergent or on autistic spectrum. So, do you think that the employers' understanding of autism affects your job search and work experience? Do you think how do you think this understanding?
Yeah, it definitely affects it. Just the fact that I'm back and forth on whether I should tell them, I think is the main it's the main impact of that. I think as well, the way some interviews are structured probably would be you'd probably want to structure that differently if you knew that you had an ADHD or someone autistic across from you.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, I don't think that's a norm anywhere at this point, and that probably would benefit, and not just the job applicants, but I think for the employers as well, they'd be able to drill deeper into the person's skill set and their gaps, which at the end of the day is kind of what an interview is about, right?
Yes.
So I think for them, the process would become more effective, and they'd be able to leave the room with a clearer understanding of the candidate across the table. But it requires a very different understanding, a very different level of understanding of, I think, where it is today.
So things are changing, and I think I'm optimistic that people also can learn like everybody else, and then being able to make this accommodation. Knowledge dispels fear. So once you know what to do. So, and also, like for instance, in our educational systems, our changes are happening now. So we know that 50% of the skills are related to knowledge and 50% are linked to the cognitive ability of executive functioning. So it's 50% related to knowledge, 50% is related to the skills. So therefore, I think it's important for educational system to adapt this. And also going further, we are looking for employment. We are looking at what is important to that employer to understand and how to do this. In this process, can you share some, for instance, people who listen to your interview, are there any strategies that you can share or support that help you to find and keep the job? Because that's as well is really important. What strategies have you employed yourself?
I mean, the main thing for me has been to try to look inwards and really try to understand, okay, what is it that I do well? What is it that I don't do well? And for the things that I don't do well, are they things that I can work on and remedy and kind of plug that gap? Or is it just something that is either not worth the investment or just that I'm not going to be able to change? And in that case, well, let's try and find roles that are not going to be requiring that gap. So that's, I think that's the main thing for me. It's a very difficult, like it sounds easy, but it's difficult because I think it's difficult to be honest with yourself about, because you want to think that you're great at everything, and that just can't be the case. So yes, it's looking inwards primarily, I would say, and really taking stock of where your skill set is and where it's not.
So it's basically knowing your strengths and
Yes.
what area you should be working on to make this accommodation. And it's, as I said, is all the time learning. So our brain continuously accommodates, learn, makes new connections, this prior knowledge, all this is happening in our brain with a lightning speed. And I do believe, for instance, understanding from the employer's point of view, understanding those set skills that you bring in a company, I think is really paramount. As well as, for instance, I think you highlighted, and it's really important to me to mention this, that period, like 1 year, like 1 year and a half. So we talk about in 18 months till you get a diagnosis. So that waiting time, which puts an immense pressure on yourself as well, waiting for this diagnosis. So hence, in our platform, we are actually helping that gap. We're giving the families, giving the educators as well the strategies whilst they've been waiting for this diagnosis to be clear. We as a tool, we can point to, we are not a diagnostic tool, but we can point to diagnosis that will be like primary condition, it could be comorbid condition. You may have autism and underlying issues like dyslexia or dyspraxia. So which you are not aware. If you go to the ASD specialist, that will be your primary diagnosis. But if you go to dyslexia first, that will be dyslexia, will be your first diagnosis. So I remember Professor Angela Fawcett, she's an international dyslexia expert, and she was mentioning that depending who you go first. So that will be your primary diagnosis. So I think this is a really important problem. It's not important, but it is a problem. It is an issue that all countries, I will say, facing. In the UK, the waiting list is 24 to 36 months, and Belgium is 24 months. So just imagine that is basically 2 years of and chronological age to that child, which we know there is a difference in between the developmental age and chronological age. So that means actually bring you even more backwards is the accommodations or differentiation or of in the lessons are not made. So going back to schools and educational system plays an important role in this. That's why we are working with the vocational schools as well in this project. And to wrap it up, because it was a very interesting discussion, and thank you for sharing all this. What advice would you give to companies where they look to support autistic workers? What would you tell them from your perspective?
Just just Google it. Don't be afraid. Actually, don't be afraid of that label, because someone is autistic doesn't mean that they're not going to be able from the off to learn something or to do something particular. Like I'm in sales, which you would think is actually a very not appropriate, not inappropriate, but like it's not the best suited profile, type of role for my profile. But I do make it work because I've learned some things, and I've learned to not rely on my nonverbal skills as much. So, you know, you can work around it. So I think, and understanding that it's all a question of degrees, right? It is a spectrum. It's not a 0 to 1 switch, and once more people, more employers will be able to understand the nuances and the intricacies of all that, they'll be more, I think, more understanding, less dismissive, and they'll also, I think, be able to leverage the strengths that come with that.
This is really crucial for, where are you? Oh, sorry. I have just lost you. I just wanted to open that page to show you the employment guide. Just a second, because we are still recording, so that will be like autism. Yeah, there we go. I'm so proud of sharing this work with the wider world. So this is our page, basically, empowering autistic job seekers, and we have the partners. This is our partners. We are the leading organization. This is the report that I said to you. Is available in 5 languages, 6 languages. It's coming an autism map, which will pin up all the important organizations on those countries that has been participating. And this is the employment guide. And employment guide is really, really, really state of the art, I would say. Yeah, so again, this is coming, the digital training, and also stories, which will be a story like the discussion that we have today, plus on the YouTube channel, we will be posting that. So, Baptiste, I'm so grateful for your time. Really, really appreciate it. I hope that this is going to be useful for many other individual person like yourself. I have really faith that world can be a better place if we all together. I think together we can achieve a lot more. And then being unified, and in our goals, the world is a better place. We work in harmony, and okay, we cannot stop everything happening, but at least if we can influence some lives in what we do today, I think is going to be different in the future.
Yeah, incremental progress.
The
name of the game.